everybody, it's Jeremy. Welcome back to EA Tetragrammaton, where we are playing This is turn 58. Jump into things. Alright, so we have a little bit of stuff going on. We're kind of in an interim period after the tail end of the fall of Yomi, consolidation, and trying to figure out what we're... So, just jump into it. Got an augury in Delka that found nothing. Summon Yetis from Ishib 24 in Perenna. Another arcane probing just for luck. Got nothing. We actually did manage to capture a single blood slave in Bell. We're actually turning, gonna keep focusing on trying to get up to that 50 to empower someone, and hopefully that'll go well shortly. Frost. We lost crippled units. We had a battle in Erd between Hinnom and Angia. Let's watch what this is. It's our good friend Pedosian. Alright, so looks like Hinnom has gotten high enough to summon Pedosian, the father ill earth. This guy's pretty cool. But it looks like he has already taken a never healing wound. That's unfortunate. His gear looks a little sus. As far as like actually keeping him alive and becoming a legitimate super combatant. So my assumption would be is that I think these all look like construction 4 items. So it might just be that Hinnom hasn't gone up to construction 6, or just doesn't have a lot of paths, maybe, or is kind of getting stuck into certain situations. So, but maybe this is exactly what they want and what they envision. Up against a very small amount of PD, Bear Tribe, Minotaur. This should not prove any real issue for a Pedosian. But let's see. So he goes through Iron Skin, Temper Flesh. What else has he got? He's got Legions of Steel. Okay. Summon Earth Power. I might have started off with Summon Earth Power if you're gonna go through this whole script. Like, you've got him all the way in the back, and the hope is that he finishes the script. So I guess in theory, right, you're like, well, I want to do the things that are most important. But is Legions of Power really more important, or Legions of Power? Legions of Steel really more important than Summon Earth Power? And Summon Earth Power at the beginning would have meant that you had, what's your fatigue? 49 fatigue now? Less. We have 48 fatigue, 35 protection. Good. Obvious resistance, very high magic resistant as well. Though at this point, I don't know the Iron Will really matters. Either you want Iron Will typically early, or you don't want it at all. Okay, so he's going to come in, and there's very little likelihood that this PD is going to be able to touch him at all. And even if it does, he does have built-in regeneration. So, should be a pretty simple fight. Punching people. Just punching people. Good job, Pedosian. Sweet. Okay, so... we have taken control of the Pharaoh Woods and control of the Verdant Steppe from Lanka. They've relinquished those to us without issue. We have moved out of Wick and left it undefended. So Wick is ours, is going to be ours, but we're allowing Lanka to move through Wick without any hassle or harangue or anything like that, because that's going to help make sure that... basically that Yomi gets dealt with as efficiently and quickly as possible. So, all well and good. We've got another event in Sinkhole Swamp. So the prophets of woe were right. Famine has struck. I'm pretty sure we patrolled the prophets here out, but we might want to double check. Hordes of peasants have left their homes in search of a better place to live. That's fortunate. We've got a handful of gems found in the shards of a broken mirror. 5 air gems, very nice. And then seafarers have found a new port of call with lucrative trade. They are bringing home valuable wares, and tax gains have increased. This is plus 25 province income in the trackless wastes. Plus or minus, province income events are incredibly good. A lot of people see these and they're like, oh, plus 10, plus 9, whatever. 25 is extremely good regardless. But even in those scenarios, like, just think about how much money you're pulling in over the course of not a single turn, but turns. This is 25 increased income for this province, pretty much ever. That's 250 extra gold in 10 turns. That's really nice. That is really nice. Okay. Very, very cool. Very nice to get an event like that. We also have a battle in the Forest of Springs that we get to watch. An independent set of attacks against Pan. And I don't know why. So Pan has charmed many things from AI Kailasa. And some of the things that they have charmed are these yogis. I have no idea why these yogis are here. I guess maybe to site search for astral or something. But they're just gonna die. He did. And he also did. That's sad. Okay, so 2 yogis killed by a random force of independence. Okay, what are we doing this turn? We got a lot of movement. Last turn had a lot of movement. We're doing a lot. There's a lot more movement happening than we have had in a while. We were. Oh, I'm kind of sleepy. Sorry. We were in a pattern with Yomi where we didn't have a lot of movement going on throughout the majority of our empire. We were very not stagnant. We were still actively doing things, but everything that we were doing was either remote or research or fortifications that we didn't have to move crazy amounts around for. And then we were just moving armies towards Yomi. Now that we have a little bit of the Yomi war is basically done as far as we're concerned. Now we've got to consolidate afterwards, and we're trying to position ourselves to be able to make moves in the near future afterwards. So let's take a look again, starting off with the Yomi front, about what is actually happening. So we are moving into Wick after Lanka this turn. So we're going to take that back. Very good. A good portion of what we're going to be doing over the next few turns is trying to get stuff out of the Yomi land that we've taken. So we're going to be patrolling in Delka, for instance. And we're probably going to try to keep an army up here and patrolling around and things. We're trying to get Enkidu Elders. We're actually recruiting another one. We're trying to get Enkidu Elders up and at work in the provinces here to get province defense up, but also to get unrest down. And once we get the unrest down in all of these provinces, we're gonna gain a fair amount of benefit from them. Especially once we get a fortification and unrest down in Verdant Steppe. And I would like to make that a priority. But with what's going on right now, we might have to look at that in a different light. So, what else are we doing? We are consolidating some forces in Trackless Waste, since it's our fort in the area. We are moving forces in C4, for example, over to Perenna. We're actually holding with most of our forces here in Neotha, most of our mages, because there is a lab here and we are not in any concern about supply usage. So we're just making use of the lab. We're just going to research because that's another turn. Basically, we're getting like an extra 300 or 400 research by just stopping here and doing research with all these people, as well as a bunch of forging. We're doing some transformation. We're doing some site searching for Yomi's lands, although I think Yomi has already done a fair amount of site searching, as we know. But we're going to verify just to make sure. We are launching our attack this turn on Alluvia. So we've got 5 Ishibs, all with water bracelets and rings of water breathing, each with 4 water gems, and we should be able to do a pretty simple job of entering into the ocean, summoning water power, which is going to cost very low fatigue. It will boost us to the point to where Summon Water Elemental, which only takes 3, and we already have 3. This will take less fatigue, right? Which means that we will be able to do 2 of them easier and have more fatigue, but we'll unfatigue faster, basically, than we would have if we didn't have water power, even though it adds a little bit of fatigue. Thanks. But that means that what we're looking at is 10 water elementals, which I think should be more than enough to handle between 30 to 50 marrows, right? Marrows are not especially strong, so I think we'll be okay there. And then we're probably going to, I don't think we're going to be able to move from Alluvia to Greenwater, so we'll probably pop up into Trackless Waste and then pop back down into Green Waters. Okay. So that's exciting. We're continuing to patrol in Eal. We are continuing to summon Yetis. We are moving our Yetis from Sinkhole Swamp into Tesiphon. We're not launching an attack against Femoria this turn. And we might not launch an attack against Femoria for a couple turns. As we can see, Femoria has attacked... Man, I'm so tired. I should have taken a nap. As we can see, Femoria has been attacked by Mictlan. I think there is an army of Ocelotls on Mictlan's capital right now. I'm not sure. I don't know. So what Mictlan has been doing is Mictlan has been kind of like joining in wars, like joined in a war with Pan, took a couple provinces, and immediately like pieced out with Pan. I was like, yeah, okay. And then kind of did the same thing with Lanka, right? Took a couple, threatened the war, started the war, and basically Lanka was just like, okay, no. Take these provinces, get off my back, right? And it's possible that Mictlan is doing the same thing here as well, right? It feels like they're doing a lot of that. And that's scary. Because that's smart. That's smart strategy. To a point, it's smart strategy, I will say. It is a sound strategy, but there are flaws with it. It is making Mictlan progressively stronger without taking a lot of losses, right? So, for example, we ended up beating Yomi with Lanka's assistance, and we're coming out the other side with more than we started. But we lost a lot along the way, right? Our losses were pretty severe. Mictlan is avoiding those types of situations, right? Start a war, sue for peace, right? Take 2 or 3 provinces. Very easy, very simple, quick, and low commitment. The only problem with it is, right, is every person that you do that to is going to have, regardless of whether or not they think of it objectively, they're going to have a bias against you from a diplomatic standpoint, right? Pan is going to be more likely to be annoyed with Mictlan in the future. Lanka is going to be more likely to be annoyed with Mictlan in the future. And other people who you haven't even done that to, right? This, I'm just talking about the overall concept, not just specifically Mictland at this point. Other people watching that happen are going to be more annoyed with you or more hesitant in diplomacy with you in the future. For example, like, I've watched it happen and I'm kind of like, Mictland sus. Like, I am already on edge and will probably have a hostile bend towards diplomacy with me. And I know Hinam has kind of already done that as well. Like, they're like, okay, Mictland is just in it for quick grabs, and that's annoying and or frustrating, etc. Right? So people take note of that. So you got to kind of be careful. It's a sound strategy, and Mictland's pulling it off well, it seems, to the point to where Mictland might actually be more of an issue or a threat than Pan. I don't necessarily know that that is the case yet, but Mictland in the late game is more threatening than Pan in the late game. So, kind of got to see how that turns out. What are we doing? We're not doing anything crazy interesting this turn. We're getting some Gudus, we're getting a Gala, more Gudus, more Spear Guard, another Gudu. And what we're doing there is we're trying to go for cheap but effective researchers that can be utilized for war, right? Our main focus right now is our research. I kind of want to, and there's no particular reason for this, right? It's just kind of like a deadline that I can fix in my mind. But I would like to hit enchantment 8 in 3 turns rather than 4 turns. And that's going to take some finagling, primarily with the fact that we've got 10 hammers in play right now, and I'm trying to use them to forge things consistently, but we're having to be careful with certain gems that we use, and etc, etc. So we're probably going to have a couple of turns coming up where we don't use all of our hammers, and that's fine. But the bend there, the goal will be to hit enchantment 8 in 3 turns rather than in 4 turns, because that's a turn extra to pull the trigger on something. And what are we getting out of enchantment 8? Numero uno is mass regeneration. Very, 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 very good. Okay. Number 2, and only slightly behind, right, is Frostfend. And why is that so important to us? Frostfend is super important to us because of the Yetis. When we incorporate the Yetis into our army with Frostfend, with mass regeneration, they're going to be very strong. They're going to be very useful. Fog warriors as well, right? Mass protection. They're going to be hard to kill, hard-hitting units that can help dominate the battlefield. But they'll also fuck us up. They will screw us over because of their chill aura. Frostfend helps prevent that. So with Frostfend, we do not have to fear our own Yetis. Another good scenario, though, is we're also going to get Thunderfend and Firefend. Thunderfend is easy for us to cast with our Crystal Sorceresses. Firefend is not easy to cast necessarily, but we have some things in the works that are hopefully going to mix some of that type of stuff up, right? So we'll talk about that in. Another thing that Enchantment 8 will get us is Mists of Deception. This can be very useful in certain situations, so this would be another communion spell for us. It's not the best thing in the world, but it's kind of like a air howl, I guess. So it's not too bad. Lichcraft, though, is a very big thing. So our plan is to, after Enchantment 8, hit Thom, hit Evocation, and then run up Conjuration. Once we get to the point to where we're wanting to go with Conjuration, Lichcraft will then be on the table, and Lichcraft is pretty strong. Liches are a death 5 can make a lich for 30 death gems, and a lich I want to say is death 4. So you're not like boosting your path with it or anything like that. But they're immortal, and you can give them, especially since we have a lot of hammers, we can give them very cheap gear, very cheap effective gear, and send them out raiding, and they can just do things like, actually since we're gonna have Thaumaturgy 5, they can just do things like summon Horde of Skeletons. We can put like Boots of the Messenger, just 3 freaking gem Boots of the Messenger on liches, and if the lich dies with the boots, whatever. There's 3 gems. We don't give a shit, right? But it actually, that type of stuff can make them really effective. So that's a kind of cool rating measure that we can kind of add to the mix. That's something that we don't have very well. So, something to keep in mind. What else? I think that's it. That's kind of why we're wanting to, and again, there's no real reason why we want to do a big push to make it 3 turns instead of 4 turns. It's just we can, and that would mean 59, 60, 61, right? So turn 61, we would have all of those abilities, and then I would feel really comfortable about just sending this mass army in, conquering Tyrannia, conquering Shambolic, maybe taking Glistening Dew Forest, etc. Basically, like eating a small chunk of Femoria, and then being like, okay, done with Femoria, look elsewhere, right? Take Gift of Health, so it's all kind of like coming to a head. I wanna gain a little bit more oomph. I kind of want to get Alluvia. I kind of want to get Green Waters. I kind of want to take Jabal Kish. I want to consolidate this area, and then maybe turn towards Pangea. Because after consolidating this area, if Femoria is going to be devoured by me, Mictlan, and Lanka, after that I don't really have a whole lot of options. It's basically either, because Mictlan will be on an extremely narrow front. That won't make any sense. It will basically be either Lanka, Relay, or Pan. I don't relish the idea of moving against Lanka, especially since we have been allies for a while now. I don't relish the idea of going underwater and trying to mess with Relay, although with them having Arcane Nexus up, it might actually be beneficial. And I might actually be able to convince people to help fund the endeavor, because Relay has Arcane Nexus up, is the situation. So, anyways, we've got a growing horde of gear. Once we actually have an army on the move, this gear is gonna disappear very, very swiftly. But no worries. What, is there anything cool or interesting that we're doing this turn that we haven't been? Oh, we've got Bone 1 over here in the Litter Skull, and he is in through the site. So we get 3 Soulless per turn, which is kind of cool. So, I mean, these guys aren't great. This probably is not a great use of his time, but he's an inept researcher, so, you know. 10 turns from now, or I guess 9 turns from now, we're going to have 30 Soulless that we can, you know, dump in a battlefield, and these guys take a buff just like anyone else does, you know, like you can put protection on them, you can put Fog Warriors on them, you know, so whatever. And they're free. They have 50 morale. You know? It's not great, but I'll take it. We are continuing to amass over here for blood hunting. We've got a transformation. I think we've already touched on that. I think that's pretty much it. We do have our god here staying in Neotha, because remember, Neotha is the place where we have the statue of the sitting god. This is an enchantment bonus. So basically, staying here means we save like 10 gems on casting Gift of Health. And that's good, right? We're basically waiting to cast Gift of Health, because I don't want to incur the wrath of Pan when Pan has 2 large armies on my border. So we're both going to be working on our own positioning for that and getting prepared for it. Plus, I want to work on some infrastructure and stuff like that. So you might also notice that our water gems took a bit of a hit this turn. Most of the forging that we're doing is water right now, so we did go down quite a bit, but also part of why we're losing water gems is because we're sending some water gems to Lanka, and Lanka is sending us astral pearls back, and this is actually a really big deal. So yeah, I want to touch on this. We're gonna make some stuff. Communions are because we've lucked into lizard shamans and crystal sorceresses. Communions are now kind of a very big part of our military game plan. And one of the things that we always had the ability to do from the very beginning, and I kind of expected us to do a lot more of, because I kind of expected us to have a lot more astral income, is to utilize things like crystal matrices, right? So we are going to make some of these. We're going to get, with the astral pearls that we're getting from Lanka, we're going to make probably 2 or 3 crystal matrices. And we're going to use those crystal matrices to inject different individuals into our communions. Specifically, we are probably going to put, fortunately, right, because, look, a crystal matrix is a miscellaneous slot, we can put almost, even like Great Bears, almost any transformation we can put in there. So what we can do with something like a Great Bear is enter that into the communion, and they're already communion mastered, okay? So what they do is they do, I think, if I'm remembering correctly, I think you have to be in the communion before, like, the communion has to exist. I don't know about the timing. I'm gonna look that up, or maybe I'll do some testing, right? But you might have to like hold for 1 turn before you, because the Great Bear, like if we put a crystal matrix on this Great Bear, it would start in the communion. But no one else would be in the communion, right? They have to communion up first. So if he cast a buff while they're communioning up, I don't know that everyone else gets it. But I'll look into that. But in theory, what we can add into the mix, right, with the Great Bears are things like Earth Power, summon Earth Power. And this isn't obviously an Enkidu Shaman exclusive, like any of our Earth Gurus can do that. But we can do something like summon Earth Power, Strength of Gaia, right? And again, the Strength of Gaia may or may not be necessary, because what are you really getting out of Strength of Gaia? You're getting Bark Skin, which if we just mass protection, it doesn't matter. You're getting Strength +4, who cares? The Communion slaves don't care. And regeneration. So you can just cast regeneration, right? But what it also will do, I think, and I'm not sure about this. What it will also do is for all of our lizard shamans, I believe it will increase their nature path, right? So that could be really good as far as their efficiency goes, right? So that could be cool. Earth Power is going to help the whole communion, have reinvigoration and not fatigue out and die. Gaia's Blessing is going to help with regeneration, but also with nature magic. You can add, because there's Earth, you can add more things into the mix, like Iron Skin, right? Or Temper Flush, so you can do that type of stuff. We can also just as easily turn around and put water into a communion now, right? And more specifically, this is actually really important because this is whether it's a Gudu or whether it's an Ishib or whether it's an Insi or Intu or who the fuck ever. And this is a big deal depending on who we're facing, which I think at this point it's kind of a big deal for most. And that is we can have H5s, right? We have an Ishib in here who is a priest 3, or we take like an Insi or an Intu who's are already priest 3s. Sorry, Ishib is priest 2. And we enter them into the communion with a crystal matrix, and very, very easily with not a very big communion, they are gonna be H5s. H5s can cast divine channeling, right? Which will make all other priests, all other holy, increased by 1. And if we're potentially fighting demons, that's a big deal. If we're fighting Lanka and Miklin, both demons. Hinam, quite a few demons, right? If we're dealing with the undead via Femoria or Lanka or Miklin, right? Or Hinam or Pan. Pan's got a lot of undead too. That's good. That's very good for us. So we've always been planning to bring crystal matrices into our communions, but a lot of my focus has been trying to develop a pearl income, and that has just woefully failed. Now, fortunately, taking over some of Yomi's lands, we actually have this painted cave, and we have a starland pond. So we are going to go from 2 to 4, which I'm hopeful is going to be good for us. I've also got, we're going to go back into the vein of this into running around and searching, H3 searching, to see if we can find maybe a couple more sites. We'll see how that goes. We've got several locations, I think, where we can search and potentially find some stuff. So that's probably what that into is going to do for the rest of her time, you know, in this game. And I think that's it. I think that's kind of the interesting stuff. We're gonna get some crystal matrices. We're gonna get those into our communions, add some new effects. It'll be fun. That's about it. All right. Anyways, that is going to be it for this turn. We'll see where it takes us on the next one. Bye, everybody.